Admiral Jin stood on the observation deck of Earth's largest space station, watching the alien ships approach. They were beautiful in a way that made his stomach tight with worry. The vessels gleamed like polished silver, moving through space with a grace that human ships could never match. Behind him, his staff waited in silence, feeling the weight of this moment just as he did. This was first contact. Humanity had dreamed of this day for centuries, imagining peaceful aliens or terrible invaders. What arrived was something in between, or perhaps something worse. Something that smiled while it lied. Alien Ambassador called himself. He was tall and thin, with skin that shifted colors like oil on water. When he spoke, his voice came through translators that made him sound almost human, almost trustworthy. He brought gifts and promises. He spoke of the Galactic Council, a union of 200 species that had kept peace for 10,000 years. He said humanity was special, that Earth's location and human potential made them valuable. He offered membership, technology, and protection. Dr. One watched the first meeting from a side room, recording everything. She was a language expert, someone who studied how beings communicated and what they really meant beneath their words. Something about speech patterns bothered her, but she could not name it yet. The words were friendly, but the structure felt rehearsed, like a script performed many times before. Captain Wu was younger than most officers at the meeting, but he had been chosen as the human liaison because of his open mind and quick thinking. He wanted to believe in the aliens. He wanted humanity to join the stars as equals. When spoke of curing diseases and ending hunger, Wu felt hope bloom in his chest. When he looked at Admiral Jin, he saw only cold calculation in the older man's eyes. The Council's first gifts arrived within weeks. Medical technology that cured cancer, that healed wounds overnight, that extended human life by decades. They shared energy systems that made power nearly free. They opened trade routes that brought wealth to Earth. The people celebrated. Governments praised the Council. Only a few voices, like Admiral Jin, urged caution. Free gifts come with hidden prices, Jin said in a closed meeting with Earth's leaders. We should study this technology, understand it, before we become dependent on it. But he was overruled. The benefits were too great, too immediate. Sick children walked again. Elderly grandparents grew young. Poverty began to fade in nations that accepted Council aid. How could anyone argue against that? The treaty came next, presented it as a simple formality, a path to full membership in the Galactic Council. The terms seemed reasonable at first glance. Humanity would have 50 years to prepare, to learn, to grow. During this time, they would share their scientific discoveries with the Council, accept guidance on military matters, and contribute resources to the galactic economy. In return, they would receive more technology, more knowledge, and eventually a vote in Council decisions. Dr. One read the treaty 17 times. Each time, she found new phrases that troubled her. Words like oversight and coordination and recommended limitations appeared throughout the document. She brought her concerns to Captain Wu, who listened but did not understand her worry. "They are helping us," Wu said. "Why would they harm us?" "I am not saying they will harm us," one replied. "I am saying the treaty gives them power to control us if they choose to use it." Admiral Jin tried to delay the signing. He proposed amendments, requested clarifications, suggested a shorter trial period. The Council was patient but firm. This was their standard treaty, used with every new species. They could not make special exceptions for humanity. Either Earth signed as written, or they would sadly withdraw their offer and move on. Fear of being left behind, of losing the gifts, of returning to disease and poverty drove the decision. Every major government on Earth signed the treaty within 6 months of first contact. Humanity was now a probationary member of the Galactic Council, subject to Council guidance for the next 50 years. The celebrations lasted for weeks. Humans danced in the streets, thrilled to be part of something larger than themselves. Ships began traveling to other worlds, meeting new species, learning new things. The future seemed brighter than ever before. Admiral Jin did not celebrate. He ordered his staff to create detailed records of everything the Council provided, every interaction, every trade. He created a secret team to study the alien technology, not just to use it, but to understand how it worked. He began building hidden facilities where humans could experiment without Council oversight. Dr. One started her own project. She collected every piece of information she could find about the Council's history, about the other species in their union, about how the Council actually functioned. The official records were impressive. 10,000 years of peace, 200 species living in harmony, no wars, no conflicts, no suffering. But late one night, searching through encrypted data that the Council had carelessly left accessible, she found something else. References to species that were no longer mentioned, gaps in the timeline, economic records that did not match the official history. She everything and brought it to Admiral Jin. "I think," she said quietly, "we have made a terrible mistake." Jin looked at the data, his face growing harder with each page. "How long do we have?" "I do not know," one admitted, "but I think the 50-year transition period is not about helping us. I think it is about making us too weak to resist when the trap closes." They had no proof yet, only suspicions and fragments. But Admiral Jin had not survived 3 wars by ignoring his instincts. He doubled his secret research programs. He began quietly preparing Earth's military for something the politicians thought impossible. He began preparing for the day when humanity might need to fight the entire galaxy for its freedom. Above Earth, the Council ships remained in orbit, watching, waiting, patient as only ancient beings can be. 20 years passed like water through open fingers. Admiral Jin was now supreme commander of all Earth's military forces, his hair gray and his face lined with the weight of secrets. The world had changed in 2 decades. Human colonies spread across a dozen worlds, all within the zones the Council had marked as acceptable. Children grew up learning alien mathematics alongside human history. The sick no longer feared disease. The hungry no longer starved. But Jin could not shake the feeling that humanity was living in a beautiful cage. Colonel Min entered his office without knocking, as she always did. She had been his intelligence chief for 12 years, and in that time she had built a network of informants that reached across human space and into Council territory. She carried a data pad, and her face told him the news was bad. "We have confirmation," she said simply. 47 species before us, all following the same pattern. Jin felt his heart sink even as his mind sharpened. "Show me." The data was damning. Min had traced Council records back 3,000 years, finding species after species that had joined the Council with hope and celebration. Each one had signed the same treaty. Each one had received gifts and guidance. And each one, within their 50-year transition period, had been slowly restricted, controlled, and absorbed into the Council's structure. Some had resisted. Those species had been economically isolated, their trade cut off, their colonies blockaded. Within decades, they had collapsed and begged the Council to save them. The Council had graciously agreed, but the price was complete submission. Those species now worked Council mining operations, staffed Council factories, and provided labor that the ancient, comfortable Council races no longer wanted to perform. "We are not even the worst case," Min explained. "The Council targeted us specifically because Earth sits at the intersection of 3 major trade routes. Control Earth, and they control access to an entire spiral arm of the galaxy. Our resource contributions are 5 times higher than any other probationary species, but they convinced us this was normal." Dr. One had continued her research, now with a team of specialists working in secret. She had learned the Council's languages better than most Council members spoke them. She had cracked their encryption and accessed archives that were supposed to be restricted. What she found made her sick. The Council was not evil, not in any simple way. They genuinely believed they were helping younger species. They saw themselves as wise parents guiding foolish children. They could not understand why any species would prefer freedom to safety, independence to guidance. In their minds, their way was simply better, and resistance was just immaturity. This made them more dangerous, not less. They would never stop trying to help humanity into chains. Engineer worked in one of Earth's hidden research facilities, the ones Admiral Jin had built in secret 20 years ago. Was brilliant in the way that frightened people who met him. He could look at alien technology and not just understand it, but improve it. He had been studying council gifts for years, and he had made a disturbing discovery. "They are giving us toys," he explained to Jin during a secure meeting. "Advanced toys, yes, but deliberately limited. Every piece of technology they share has restrictions built into it. Our medical devices cannot be modified. Our power systems cannot exceed certain outputs. Our ships cannot mount weapons above a specific threshold." "Can you bypass the restrictions?" Jin asked. Smiled, and it was not a kind smile. "I already have. We can make everything they gave us better, much better. The question is, can we do it fast enough?" Captain Wu, no longer young but still idealistic, struggled with the evidence. He had spent 20 years believing in the Council, working as a liaison, making friends among alien species. Learning the truth felt like betrayal, like his entire adult life had been built on lies. "Some of them must know," he said to Dr. One. "The individual council members, the ones we work with every day, they cannot all be part of this." One felt pity for him. "Most of them do not know, and if you told them, they would not believe you. They have lived this way for so long that they cannot imagine it being wrong. To them, the system is just how things are. They are prisoners who have forgotten that prisons exist." The evidence was brought before Earth's government in a secret session that lasted 3 days. President Jin, who had taken office believing humanity's future lay with the Council, sat in silence as Admiral Jin and Colonel Min presented their findings. Charts showed economic exploitation. Documents revealed political manipulation. Testimonies from other species described gradual enslavement disguised as partnership. "Can we prove this publicly?" Jin asked when they finished. "Not without revealing our intelligence sources," Min admitted. "And even if we did, the Council would deny everything. They would say we misunderstood, that we are being paranoid, that we are jeopardizing our membership over conspiracy theories." "Because," Dr. One added quietly, "that is exactly what they told the last 7 species who discovered the truth." The worst part was the timing. 30 years of dependence on Council technology had made Earth vulnerable. Human hospitals relied on alien medical equipment. Human cities ran on alien power systems. Human colonies depended on Council-approved supply lines. Trying to break free now would cause chaos, suffering, possibly collapse. "They planned this," Jin said. "Every gift was chosen to make us dependent. Every restriction was designed to keep us weak. They gave us just enough to make life better, but not enough to let us stand on our own." President Jin looked at the data for a long time. Finally, she asked the only question that mattered. "What do we do?" Jin had been preparing for this moment for 20 years. "We have 3 choices. First, we accept our fate and hope they treat us well as servants. Second, we confront them now and face economic destruction. Third, we prepare in secret and choose our moment to act." "How long would preparation take?" 10 years minimum, Jin said. "We need to replace Council technology with our own systems. We need to build a real military, not the defense force they allow us. We need to unite every human colony under a single plan. And we need to do all of this without the Council noticing." "That seems impossible," Jin said. Colonel Min smiled grimly. "President, we have already been doing the impossible for 20 years. Admiral Jin started preparing the day we signed the treaty. We have hidden facilities on 17 worlds. We have prototype ships built from scratch using our own technology. We have supply caches and backup plans and contingencies. We are not starting from nothing. We are starting from 20 years of very patient paranoia." President Jin made her decision. Do it. Prepare for independence, but you have 8 years, not 10. I do not think we have more time than that. She was right. The Council, with the patience of immortals, was growing impatient. Humanity was learning too fast, adapting too quickly, showing too much independence. Unknown to Earth's leaders, the Council was already discussing whether to accelerate humanity's integration, to tighten the restrictions before humans became too difficult to control. The trap was closing. The only question was whether humanity would be ready when it did. The Council made its move sooner than anyone expected. Ambassador arrived at Earth with an entire diplomatic fleet, his message broadcast to every human world simultaneously. He smiled as he always did, his skin shifting through colors that humans had learned meant pleasure and confidence. But his words were cold underneath the friendly tone. The Council has reviewed humanity's progress, he announced. You have exceeded our expectations in many ways. Therefore, we have decided to accelerate your integration into the galactic community. This is an honor few species receive. Admiral Jin watched the broadcast from military headquarters, his jaw tight. Beside him, Colonel Min whispered a curse. They both knew what was coming. The new requirements were presented as opportunities, as honors, as signs of the Council's trust in humanity. But each one was designed to remove human independence completely. First, human military forces would be integrated with Council defense systems. Joint command structures would be established, with Council officers in leadership positions to guide and mentor human commanders. This was described as a way to learn from species with thousands of years of experience. Second, all human starships would receive upgraded navigation systems, provided free by the Council. These new systems would link every ship to the Council network, allowing for better coordination and safety. The fact that these systems included remote access codes was mentioned only in technical documentation that most people would never read. Third, Council garrisons would be stationed on major human worlds for protection. Recent pirate activity in the sector made this necessary, explained. That the pirate activity had started only weeks ago, in areas where it had never occurred before, was not mentioned. Fourth, human colonies must accept direct Council administration to help manage the complexities of cooperation. Human governors would remain in place, but Council advisors would have final authority on major decisions. The deadline for compliance was 60 days. Failure to agree would result in suspension of trade privileges, technology support, and Council protection. Did not call this a threat. He called it a natural consequence of choosing to remain outside the community. President Jin called an emergency session with her advisors. The room was secured against surveillance, swept by engineers' team 3 times. Even so, people spoke in whispers, afraid that somehow the Council would hear. If we refuse, they will strangle us economically, the finance minister said. 40% of our medicine relies on Council supplies. Our largest colonies depend on Council-approved shipping routes. We would have months before people started dying. If we accept, we lose everything, Admiral Jin countered. We become servants in all but name. Within a generation, humanity will exist only as a labor force for Council industries. President Jin looked exhausted. How much of our preparation is complete? 60%, Jin admitted. We have ships, we have weapons, we have independent supply chains, but we need more time, another year at minimum. We do not have a year, Jin said. We have 60 days. Captain Na had been commanding a corvette on patrol duty when the announcement came. She was one of Admiral Jin's trusted officers, someone who had been read into the secret preparations years ago. She had helped establish hidden supply depots and training facilities. Now, she received a coded message from the Admiral with a simple instruction: refuse the upgrade. When the Council technicians arrived to install the new navigation system on her ship, Na politely declined. She cited technical incompatibilities, scheduling conflicts, crew training requirements. The technicians were patient at first, then insistent, then threatening. Nuss smiled and told them to file a complaint with Earth Defense Command. 40 other captains did the same. They had been selected carefully, all of them commanding ships that were built in human shipyards using human-developed technology, ships that had never depended on council systems, ships that could operate independently. The council declared them rogue vessels, traitors who were endangering the integration process, demanded their immediate arrest and the impoundment of their ships. President Jin, in what appeared to be a desperate attempt to maintain peace, ordered the captains to comply. But her orders included a secondary code that Admiral Jin had established years ago, a code that meant run and prepare. Captain Na and her fleet disappeared into deep space, to coordinates that only a handful of people knew. The Council sent pursuit ships, but human captains knew how to hide in ways that Council forces, long accustomed to peaceful operations, did not understand. The Council increased pressure on Earth. They blockaded 3 outer colonies, cutting them off from supply lines. 40 million people suddenly found themselves isolated, their communications monitored, their ships grounded. Expressed regret but said this was necessary to ensure compliance. The blockade would end as soon as Earth's government demonstrated its commitment to integration. President Jin appeared on broadcasts pleading for a diplomatic solution. Behind the scenes, she authorized Admiral Jin to accelerate all preparations. Money poured into secret facilities. Engineers worked around the clock. Military forces trained for scenarios that officially did not exist. Dr. One made a breakthrough that changed everything. Buried in human genetic code, she found markers that explained why humans adapted to alien technology so quickly. Humanity had evolved in a competitive environment, constantly facing challenges and threats. Human brains were wired for rapid learning and creative problem-solving in ways that peaceful, long-lived council species were not. More importantly, humans had something the council had forgotten existed: the willingness to sacrifice everything for an idea, for a principle, for freedom. Council species had been safe for so long that they could not imagine choosing death over submission. "This is our advantage," one explained to the command staff. "They think we are irrational because we value abstract concepts over survival. They cannot understand that this is what makes us dangerous. They have forgotten what desperation looks like." Engineer presented his latest work: human-built ships that were faster, more heavily armed, and more maneuverable than anything the Council had shown them. Weapons systems that used principles the Council had abandoned as too destructive for civilized warfare. Defense networks that could operate without any Council technology. "We can fight," said, "but we cannot win, not in any conventional sense. They have 50,000 ships to our 200. Admiral Jin smiled, and it was a predator's smile. "Then we will not fight conventionally. The Council has not experienced real war in 8,000 years. They have forgotten what humans have never forgotten. They study economics and law. We study sun, and they think in terms of acceptable losses. We think in terms of total commitment." He activated a holographic display showing the Council fleet positions around Earth and human colonies. "Colonel Min has intelligence assets inside their command structure. Engineer has given us weapons they will not expect. Captain Na has been building a fleet where they cannot find it. Dr. One has given us their secrets. President Jin has given us political cover. Everything is ready." "Ready for what?" someone asked. "Ready to say no," Jin replied. "Ready to reject their ultimatum completely. Ready to fight for our freedom even if the cost is everything we have built." President Jin addressed the Council, broadcast to every human world and transmitted to the Galactic Network. Her message was simple and final. "We reject your demands. We will not integrate our military. We will not install your systems. We will not accept your garrisons. We will not surrender our independence. If you force this issue, we will resist." Ambassador could not believe what he was hearing. No species had ever refused so directly, so completely. He tried reason, then threats, then promises. President Jin listened politely to all of it, then repeated her answer. The Council fleet began moving toward Earth. 15,000 ships assembled to ensure complete submission. Admiral Jin watched them come, his 200 ships positioned in formations that every Council tactical expert dismissed as suicidal. Sent one final message, offering clemency if humanity surrendered immediately. President Jin's response was a single word, transmitted from every human ship, every station, every colony, in every language known to the galaxy. The word was simple. The word was absolute. The word was humanity's answer to 10,000 years of Council control. The word was no. The Council fleet stopped at the edge of Earth's system, waiting for humanity to reconsider. 15,000 ships hung in space like a steel curtain, enough firepower to turn planets to dust. Council commanders expected fear, expected desperate negotiations, expected surrender. What they got was silence. Admiral Jin used that silence to position his forces. 200 human ships spread across the system in patterns that made no tactical sense to observers who thought in terms of traditional warfare. Each ship was exactly where it needed to be for a plan the Council could not imagine. In deep space beyond Council sensors, Captain Nuck commanded a very different fleet. For 3 years, her rogue ships had been building in secret, using hidden shipyards that Admiral Jin had established decades ago. What started as 40 vessels had grown. Human engineers had worked without rest. Colonists had provided materials. Everyone who knew the truth had contributed something. No watched her displays as the final ships completed their construction. Not 50 additional vessels, not 100, 2,000 ships, each one built from human designs, powered by human technology, crewed by volunteers who understood they might not survive the coming battle. "How did we hide this?" her first officer asked in wonder. "We did not hide it from everyone," Na replied. "We hid it from the Council, and they were not looking for it because they could not imagine we would dare." On Earth, President Jin addressed her people one final time before the battle. She did not promise victory. She did not claim the fight would be easy. She spoke the truth as clearly as she could. "The Council believes we will surrender because fighting them seems impossible. They are right that we cannot match their numbers. They are right that we will suffer terribly if we resist. But they are wrong about what matters most. They think survival is the highest goal. We know that some things matter more than survival. Freedom matters more. Dignity matters more. The right to choose our own path matters more." She paused, letting her words settle. "Today, we will show the galaxy what humanity means. We will show them that we are not afraid. We will show them that chains, no matter how comfortable, are still chains. And we will show them that we would rather die free than live as servants." Engineer had spent the last 3 years reverse engineering every piece of Council technology humans possessed. What he discovered both excited and horrified him. The Council's technology was elegant, efficient, and completely optimized for peaceful purposes. Human technology was crude, wasteful, and designed by a species that had never stopped fighting itself. In warfare, crude and wasteful had advantages that elegance could not match. Had created weapons the Council had abandoned ago as too barbaric for civilized beings. Nuclear mines that could be remotely detonated. Kinetic kill vehicles that accelerated to relativistic speeds. Chemical weapons designed to corrode Council hull materials. Biological agents that targeted specific alien physiologies. And most terrifying of all, ships specifically designed to become weapons themselves, their entire purpose to cause maximum damage in their final moments. Dr. One had completed her own preparation. She had compiled every secret the Council had tried to hide, evidence of 47 enslaved species, documentation of economic exploitation, proof of deliberate manipulation and control. She had packaged it all into a data bomb that would broadcast across the entire galactic network the moment the battle began. "They will try to suppress it," she told Admiral Jin. "They will claim it is propaganda, lies, human desperation." "But the other species will investigate," Jin replied. "And once they start looking, they will find their own evidence. We are not just fighting for Earth's freedom. We are lighting a fire that the Council will not be able to extinguish." Colonel Min had assets throughout the Council fleet. Informants, sympathizers, and a few aliens who had begun to question their own society's methods. She fed them false information about human capabilities, making the Council overconfident. She provided real-time intelligence about Council positions and tactics, and she had arranged for certain Council systems to fail at precisely the right moments. "How many of them know they are helping us?" Jin asked her. "Some know and help anyway," Min said. "Others think they are helping maintain peace. A few are true believers who want to see the Council's corruption exposed. It does not matter why they help. It only matters that they do." The Council sent Ambassador forward with one final offer. He appeared on every human screen, his manner that of a patient parent addressing foolish children. "Please," he said, and he sounded genuinely sad. "There is still time to avoid this tragedy. Accept our guidance. Join the community. You will be cared for, protected, given everything you need. Why choose destruction over prosperity?" President Jin responded personally. "Because prosperity without freedom is just comfortable slavery. Because we will not trade our children's independence for our own comfort. Because the question is not whether we will suffer, but whether we will choose our suffering or let you choose it for us." Shook his head. "You do not understand what you are facing. We have kept peace in the galaxy for 10,000 years. We have resources you cannot imagine. We have weapons we have not used in. If you force us to fight, humanity will be erased from history." "Then erase us," Jin said quietly. "But know that we will make you remember us. Every species you have enslaved will hear our answer. They will know that resistance is possible. They will know that the Council can be opposed. Whether humanity survives or not, you will never again control the galaxy unchallenged." The Council fleet moved forward, confident in their overwhelming advantage. Admiral Jin watched them come, his hand resting on the transmission trigger that would activate Operation Rebuttal. Every human ship, every station, every colony was ready. People in Earth cities had evacuated to shelters. Children had been moved to the safest locations available. Everyone knew what was coming. "They think we are irrational," Jin said to his bridge crew. "They think desperation makes us stupid. They have forgotten that desperation also makes us dangerous. They are about to learn the difference between a species that debates warfare and a species that has never stopped practicing it." He opened a channel to all human forces. "This is Admiral Jin to all ships and stations. The Council fleet is entering our engagement range. They believe their numbers make them invincible. They believe their technology makes them superior. They believe their experience makes them wise. Let us teach them that humanity has advantages they cannot understand. Let us show them what freedom means to those who have tasted both slavery and independence." He paused, letting his next words carry the weight they deserved. "We are not fighting to win in their terms. We are fighting to prove we cannot be conquered. We are fighting so that every species in this galaxy knows the price of trying to chain humanity. We are fighting so our children will be born free or not born at all. For Earth, for humanity, for freedom." Across human space, from ships and stations and colonies, the response came back in a single word that had become humanity's declaration of independence, their battle cry, their final answer to the Council's ultimatum. "No." Admiral Jin pressed the trigger. Captain Nuss' fleet began their jump from deep space. Dr. One's data bomb launched toward the galactic network. Engineers' weapons powered up. Colonel Min's sabotage protocols activated. and 200 human ships that should have been hopelessly outnumbered began an attack that would change galactic history forever. The Council fleet entered Earth's system with the confidence of absolute superiority. 15,000 ships against 200. 10,000 years of experience against a species barely a century into space travel. Every tactical simulation showed the same outcome: complete human defeat within hours. The simulations were wrong. Admiral Jin's first wave was not ships but missiles. Thousands of them, launched from hidden positions throughout the system. The Council's defense systems tracked them easily, destroying most before they reached their targets. But these missiles were not meant to hit anything. They were meant to blind. Each missile that detonated released clouds of metallic particles and electromagnetic interference. Within minutes, the Council fleet was operating in a fog of sensor noise. Their advanced targeting systems, designed for precision strikes against static targets, struggled to acquire locks on fast-moving human ships. The Council had forgotten that war is chaos, and chaos favors those who embrace it. Captain Nuss's fleet emerged from their jump at the edge of the system, 2,000 ships appearing where sensors showed empty space moments before. The Council commanders froze, unable to process what they were seeing. Humans did not have this many ships. Humans could not have built a fleet this size without the Council knowing. The intelligence had been certain. Colonel Min smiled from her position in Earth Defense Command. Her misinformation campaign had worked perfectly. The Council had been so confident in their surveillance that they never considered humans might have resources they did not know about. Nu did not wait for the Council to recover from their surprise. Her fleet accelerated at speeds that would have been reckless for Council ships, whose crews valued their long lives too much to risk them unnecessarily. Human crews were younger, more aggressive, and fully committed to a cause worth dying for. They dove into the Council formation like wolves attacking a flock. The Council's weapons were powerful but designed for surgical precision. Human weapons were crude and designed for maximum destruction. Nuclear mines detonated in clusters, their explosions by the confined space of the Council formation. Kinetic kill vehicles punched through shields that were optimized for energy weapons, not solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. And then there were the suicide ships. Engineer had designed vessels with a single purpose: to get close to high-value targets and detonate with enough force to take them out. Each one was crewed by volunteers who understood they would not return. The Council was horrified by the concept. Their species had long since abandoned such tactics as wasteful and barbaric. Humanity had never forgot that sometimes the mission matters more than the messenger. The first Council command ship died when 3 human vessels rammed it simultaneously, their fusion cores set to overload on impact. The explosion was visible from Earth. The second command ship retreated, only to fly into a minefield that Nuss's fleet had deployed. The third tried to broadcast a surrender, but Admiral Jin had disabled all communication channels except one specific frequency that only human forces monitored. Dr. One's data bomb had reached the galactic network. Across 200 worlds, on communication channels the Council could not block fast enough. The truth spread. 47 species saw documentation of their own exploitation. Citizens who had never questioned the Council's benevolence now had proof of systematic manipulation. Council representatives tried to claim the data was fabricated, but independent verification began immediately. The fire one had predicted was spreading beyond anyone's ability to control. On Earth, the battle's cost was becoming clear. Council bombardment had destroyed 3 cities despite defensive efforts. Casualties were in the millions, but President Jin had planned for this. Emergency protocols had evacuated the most vulnerable. Medical facilities were prepared, and humanity, seeing their people die for freedom, did not break. They hardened. The Council fleet, meanwhile, was disintegrating. Not because humans were winning ship-to-ship engagements, but because Council commanders had never experienced this level of chaos. Their tactical doctrine assumed enemies would follow certain rules, would value their ships and lives, would eventually surrender when losses became unsustainable. Humans followed none of these assumptions. They fought like cornered animals, like desperate defenders, like people who believed death was preferable to slavery. Council captains watched human ships deliberately sacrifice themselves to destroy Council vessels worth 100 times more. They saw human crews continue fighting with life support failing, engines burning, hulls breaching. They confronted an enemy that simply would not stop. Admiral Jin had studied Council psychology for 30 years. He knew that species which had known only peace could not sustain the horror of total war. His strategy was not to destroy the Council fleet, but to make them destroy themselves through fear and confusion. It was working. By the 8th hour of battle, the Council fleet began to fragment. Some ships retreated to defensive positions. Others attempted to withdraw completely. A few tried to negotiate local ceasefires. The unified force that had entered Earth's system was now a collection of frightened crews who had never trained for this, never imagined this, never wanted this. Human losses were catastrophic. Of the original 200 ships, fewer than 80 remained operational. Captain Nuss's fleet had lost a third of its vessels. 3 human colonies had been destroyed in Council reprisal attacks. Earth itself bore scars that would take decades to heal. But the Council armada was broken. Of 15,000 ships, roughly half had been destroyed or disabled. The rest were retreating in disorder, their commanders unable to coordinate, their crews traumatized by experiences their species had not known for 8,000 years. Ambassador was captured when his ship's engines failed due to Colonel Min's sabotage. He was brought before Dr. One, who had requested to speak with him. He sat in the holding cell, his color-shifting skin now a dull gray that indicated shock and confusion. "Why?" he asked her. "Why would you sacrifice so much for something as abstract as freedom? We offered you everything. Safety, prosperity, guidance. You chose death and destruction instead. I do not understand." One looked at him with something like pity. "Your species has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. You have built a civilization that spans hundreds of worlds. You have eliminated war, poverty, disease. And in all that time, you never learned the most important truth." "What truth?" asked. "That some things are worth dying for," One replied. "That freedom matters more than comfort. That dignity matters more than safety. That the right to choose matters more than being given what someone else decides you need. You cannot understand this because your species has forgotten what it means to fight for something. You have been safe for so long that you think survival is the highest goal." She leaned forward. "Humanity has never forgotten that survival is not enough. We have always known that how we live matters as much as whether we live. That is why you lost. That is why you will always lose against species like ours. Because when you fight people who value freedom more than life, your overwhelming force becomes irrelevant." The Council formally from human space 3 days later. They claimed they were being merciful, that they were choosing peace over vengeance. The truth, visible to anyone who looked, was that they were afraid. Afraid of a species that would burn its own cities rather than submit. Afraid of people who turned every ship into a potential weapon. Afraid of an enemy that simply would not stop. But the real victory was not the Council's retreat. It was what happened next. Across the galaxy, the 47 enslaved species rose in revolt. Armed with the truth Dr. One had revealed, inspired by humanity's defiance, they began demanding their freedom. The Council tried to suppress the uprisings, but their forces were scattered and demoralized. Their authority, built on the assumption of inevitable submission, crumbled when that assumption proved false. The galaxy entered a period of chaos and transformation. Some species won quick independence. Others fought longer struggles. A few fell into civil war. But everywhere the question was the same. Would they choose safety under council control or freedom with all its risks? Humanity had answered that question with a single word, and that word echoed across the stars. 10 years after the battle, Admiral Jin stood in the rebuilt Earth Defense Command. His hair was white now, his face marked by scars from the day a council bombardment had partially destroyed the original facility. He looked older than his years, carrying the weight of millions of deaths on his conscience. But Earth was free. Humanity was independent, and across the galaxy, species that had been enslaved were building their own futures. A message arrived from one of the newly independent species. Their ambassador asked a simple question: how did you do it? How did you defeat the council when they seemed invincible? Jin smiled, remembering President Jin's final broadcast, remembering Captain Nuss's fleet emerging from dark space, remembering every human who had died believing in something larger than themselves. He sent back a single word, the word that had become humanity's declaration, the word that had sparked a galactic revolution, the word that proved absolute power could be challenged by absolute conviction. No,